Performing together for these like-minded musicians has evolved over time.
We don't really play top 40, like a lot of bands do. So we kind of do our own thing, and usually I just think if you present something in a strong, real way, people will pay attention.
For the past 10 years, people have been paying attention to the band Nina Etc. This band's journey began 21 years ago when a young Nina Romano met her current bass player and former teacher, Tim Smith.
I basically bugged my parents endlessly to get me a guitar, and they were like, wait a couple of years, because I probably wanted to learn when I was like 5 or so. We're driving down this street in Islip, I think, and I was just in the car with my parents, and I saw this really crazy poster, and I was like, stop the car! So we stopped the car, and it was because I had wanted lessons for a long time, and basically because it was so interesting looking, that's why we stopped the car. And I think we even still use those posters today when we have our lessons. That's how we met. So since then, the rest is history.
Call it fate or call it destiny, but meeting Smith changed a young Romano's life, setting her on the path of her musical journey.
At first, she was virtually mute. She was a little kid, and I presume intimidated by the whole situation, so she didn't speak for a long time. I think months, but of course I might be hazy in that recollection. But when she did begin to speak, it was a torrent. It was every single question over the years that you could possibly ask about music. Nina was very keen, and she was an incredible student. If a person is somehow drawn to the same music that you are, or that is on the same sort of wavelength, thinks similarly, it's a natural thing that's what you'll do.
Tim and I are of like minds. We like the same music basically, and we have this very similar approach to working.
It was probably, as you would think, in spite of the fact that we played together for a long time in one way, at first it was quite tentative in trying to work out our roles. Getting the material to be right, getting the sound to be right, going through ridiculous amounts of gear and seeing what kinds of venues worked, what kinds of audiences, everything that you needed to do. We changed a lot.
This musical duo is now preparing to release their first album in almost 8 years, coming back with a whole new sound.
8 years ago is when the last album we put it out, so that so much has changed in that time period. So we just want to have something that's more current and really what we're about.
Their one-of-a-kind sound stems from the vintage equipment and instruments they use.
Really early recordings from the 20s and stuff on tape. This is the first real machine that did it. So we like to have stuff that kind of, since we really do love those recordings, kind of get a bit of that sound.
Though creating and recording in-house takes more time and dedication, it allows this band to be more creative, marching to the beat of their own drum.
We just didn't want to be pressured by like a studio type of environment, plus the cost, the cost is prohibitive, plus the environment is not like an environment that we like to really be in. You want to just take your time and play something till it's right. And a lot of times if you're in a studio, you're on the clock, you have to just take what take you have, and that's that.
Work becomes fun for Romano and Smith, having a bond of music and friendship.
You have a history with somebody, and it's hard. In bands, you're constantly working with each other, and you're our schedule. We're always constantly working, so you have to be able to get along with that person, and you have to, your temperament has to basically be very similar. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to get things done, and you have to be like, you have to have each other's back, basically musically and otherwise, because it's a crazy business.
For Push Pause and Patchogue, this is Dana Loyfin.